My name is Wilberforce, though most folks just call me Grandpa. I'm 72 years old, and on an ordinary morning, one of those calm, comforting mornings where the world feels harmless, I learned something that split my life into before and after. It happened over breakfast. Just me and my grandson, and a plate of toast still steaming. He swung his legs under the chair, looked up at me with those innocent eyes, and said a sentence so simple, so gentle, that it didn't hit me until a full 3 seconds later. A secret. A secret happening inside my own car. A secret my son thought I would never discover. But children don't lie about the things adults hide. What he told me that morning, it changed everything I believed about my family. And before I take you into that moment, before I show you what was really happening behind my back, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Because this community, you all, you're the reason I can keep telling these stories. If you're here for the first time, do me one favor. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell. You're not just supporting a channel. You're joining a family that refuses to let anyone suffer alone. Now, lean in. Let me tell you exactly what my grandson revealed that morning. I've always been an early riser, Navy habit. 43 years since I left the service, and my body still wakes me at 05:30 like clockwork. That Tuesday was no different. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that settles over a home when you've lived in it for 40 years and know every creak, every hum of the refrigerator, every groan the floorboards make when you walk to the kitchen. My wife, Dorothy, passed 11 years ago. Cancer. The quiet became permanent after that. But that morning, the quiet had company. My grandson, Zink, was asleep upstairs in what used to be his father's room. 7 years old. Gap in his front teeth. Obsessed with dinosaurs and convinced that my 1987 Buick LeSabre was the coolest car ever made because I let him sit on my lap and steer in the driveway. His parents, my son Matthew and daughter-in-law Abigail, had dropped him off the night before. Matthew looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Abigail barely made eye contact with me, just kissed Zink on the forehead and whispered something I couldn't hear. "Just need a night to ourselves, Dad," Matthew said, handing me Zink's overnight bag. "Work's been hell. We could use the break." I didn't ask questions. I've learned over the years that sometimes people don't want solutions. They just want space, and I was happy to give my grandson a place where he could be a kid without feeling the tension I'd noticed building in that house. So I made him pancakes for dinner. We watched a nature documentary about sharks. He fell asleep on the couch with his head on my shoulder, drooling slightly onto my flannel shirt. I carried him upstairs, tucked him in, and went to bed myself. Morning came the way it always does. I started the coffee. Strong, black, the way I've been drinking it since boot camp. I pulled out the bread for toast, butter from the fridge, and heard the padding of small feet on the stairs. "Morning, Grandpa." Zink appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, hair sticking up in 3 different directions. He was wearing his dinosaur pajamas, the blue ones with the T-Rex on the front. "Morning, buddy. You want some toast? With jam? What kind of grandpa would I be if I didn't have strawberry jam?" He grinned and climbed into the chair at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd eaten breakfast for decades, where Dorothy used to sit across from me reading the paper, where Matthew did his homework as a kid, complaining about algebra. I buttered the toast, spread the jam, poured Zink a glass of orange juice and set it in front of him. He took a bite, swung his legs under the chair, they didn't reach the floor yet, and looked out the window at the driveway where my Buick sat. That's when he said it. Casual, like he was commenting on the weather. "Grandpa, why does Daddy always take Miss Ella in your car?" My hand froze halfway to my coffee mug. "What do you mean, buddy?" "When you're sleeping. He takes your car. I saw him from my window last week when I stayed over at our house. Miss Ella got in, and they drove away really late. But Mommy was still home. She was crying in the kitchen." The kitchen went very still. Not quiet, still, like the air itself stopped moving. I looked at my grandson. He wasn't upset. He was just stating a fact, the way kids do when they see something adults don't realize they've witnessed. "You sure about that, Zink?" "Yeah." It was late. I got up to get water and I looked out my window. I saw Daddy's face when the car light came on, and Miss Ella was wearing that red coat she always wears, the one Mommy says is too fancy for church. He took another bite of toast. I didn't. My mind was spinning. Ella Thornton, Matthew's co-worker from the insurance firm. She'd been to our house for barbecues. Young, maybe mid-30s, blonde hair, always perfectly styled. Abigail always got quiet when Ella's name came up. I'd noticed, but never thought. "Maybe you were dreaming, buddy," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Sometimes dreams feel really real." Zink shrugged. "Maybe. But I don't think so. Because I heard Daddy's voice outside. He said something like, 'We have to be careful.' And then they drove away." He finished his toast. I couldn't touch mine. Because here's what I knew in that moment, even though I didn't want to admit it. Children don't make up details like that. They don't invent red coats and whispered conversations and the specific image of their mother crying in the kitchen. Zink wasn't lying, which meant my son was. If you've ever had a moment where one sentence from a child shattered everything you thought you knew, hit that like button. Because what I discovered next, it's worse than anything I could have imagined. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when I checked that footage. Trust me, you need to see this. I got Zink dressed and set him up with cartoons in the living room. He didn't notice anything was wrong. Why would he? He just told me something he thought was mildly interesting, the way he might mention seeing a raccoon in the yard, but I couldn't stop hearing his voice. "Daddy always takes Miss Ella in your car." Always. Not once. Always. I stood in my kitchen holding a cold cup of coffee, staring out the window at my Buick. It sat there in the driveway like it had for years. Pale blue paint fading in spots. A small dent in the rear bumper from when Dorothy backed into a mailbox in 1998. We'd laughed about that for weeks. That car held memories. Good ones. Family road trips. Teaching Matthew to drive when he was 16. White-knuckling the passenger seat while he jerked through stop signs. Driving Dorothy to her chemo appointments, her hand in mine the whole way. And now it held something else. Something I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. 6 months ago, I'd installed a dash cam. One of those small ones that mounts on the windshield and records continuously. I'd gotten sideswiped in a grocery store parking lot. Some teenager texting, didn't even stop, and my insurance agent suggested I get one for protection. "These days, Wilberforce, you need proof," he'd said. "People lie. Cameras don't." I'd installed it myself. Took me an afternoon and 3 YouTube videos, but I got it working. Front-facing camera, records everything. Saves to a memory card that loops every week unless you manually save footage. I'd forgotten about it. Until now. I waited until Zink was thoroughly absorbed in his cartoon, something about talking trains. Then I went to the garage. The camera was still there, small and unobtrusive, tucked behind the rearview mirror. I popped out the memory card and took it inside to my laptop. My hands were shaking. I'm not a tech-savvy man. I can check my email and look up the weather, but anything beyond that requires patience and sometimes a call to my neighbor's teenager. But I managed to plug the card into the reader and open the files. 3 weeks of footage. Hundreds of clips. Short drives to the grocery store, the pharmacy, church on Sunday. Me, alone, driving my own car. But then I started checking the timestamps. 11:47 p.m. 2 weeks ago. I clicked it. The video opened with darkness. Then the interior light came on as the driver's door opened. And there he was. Matthew, my son. Sliding into the driver's seat of my car. He looked around, checking, I realized, to make sure no one was watching, then reached over and unlocked the passenger door. A figure slipped in beside him. Blonde hair, red coat. Ella. She laughed at something he said. Her hand touched his arm. Familiar. Comfortable. the way you touch someone when it's not the first time. Matthew backed out of my driveway. I watched my own car disappear down the street, driven by my son, with a woman who wasn't his wife. I sat there staring at the screen long after the clip ended. Then I checked another date. 11:52 p.m. 10 days ago. Same thing. Matthew, Ella, my car, another date. 12:03 a.m. 1 week ago. Again. They were using my car while I slept, while Abigail was home with Zink, while I trusted my son with the spare key I'd given him for emergencies. This was the emergency, but it got worse, because the dash cam didn't just record video, it recorded audio. I turned up the volume on one of the clips. The camera picked up their conversation, muffled but clear enough if you listened carefully. "Can't keep doing this, Matthew. It's too risky." That was Ella's voice, nervous, uncertain. "Just a little longer, I promise. She doesn't suspect anything." Matthew's voice, calm, reassuring. A pause. Then Ella again. "What about your father? He's going to find out eventually. You're using his car, for God's sake." "He won't. Look, he's slowing down. Forgets things. Last week he asked me the same question 3 times. I'm handling it." My blood went cold. Slowing down. Forgets things. I don't forget things. My mind is sharp. I read 3 books a month. I do the crossword every morning. I manage my own finances, my own medications, my own life. But my son was telling people I was losing it. Why? I fast-forwarded through more clips. Different nights, different conversations. Fragments I had to piece together like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. The house is worth at least $800,000 now. Once he signs the power of attorney, we just need the dementia diagnosis to make it legal. And then the one that made my hands ball into fists. He's lived a good life, Ella. He'd want me to be taken care of. He just doesn't realize he's not capable of making these decisions anymore. I stopped the video. Sat there in my garage, surrounded by tools I'd used to build a treehouse for Matthew when he was 8. A workbench where we'd fixed his first bike together. Shelves holding Christmas decorations Dorothy had collected over 40 years. And now I understood. My son wasn't just having an affair. He was planning to take everything. I didn't sleep that night. Zink was curled up in the guest room, breathing soft and steady, dreaming whatever innocent dreams 7-year-olds dream. And I sat in my den with the lights off, staring at the wall where Dorothy's picture hung. She's smiling in that photo. We're at the beach, maybe 15 years ago, before the cancer, before everything got hard. I whispered to her picture like I sometimes do when the house feels too empty. "He's planning to take it all, Dottie. Our boy, the house you loved, the life we built." The picture didn't answer. It never does. But I knew what she'd say if she could. "Then don't let him." Dorothy was tougher than me. Always had been. When Matthew was 17 and stole $200 from my wallet to buy concert tickets, I wanted to let it slide. "Boys make mistakes," I'd said. She made him get a job and pay back every penny, with interest. "If you love him," she'd told me, "you teach him consequences." I'd forgotten that lesson somewhere along the way. But sitting there in the dark, watching the clock tick past 3 a.m., I remembered. My son wasn't going to get away with this, but I couldn't just explode. Couldn't storm over to his house and throw the evidence in his face. That's what rage wants you to do. React fast, burn bridges, destroy everything in the blast radius. No, I needed to be smarter than that. Because here's what I'd learned in 72 years. The moment you show someone what you know, you lose control of what happens next. They get defensive. They lie better. They cover their tracks. But if you stay quiet, if you let them think they're winning, they get sloppy. So I made a decision. I was going to play the role my son had already written for me. The forgetful old man. The one who's slowing down. The one who needs help managing his own life. If Matthew wanted to believe I was losing my mind, I'd give him exactly what he expected. And I'd use it to bury him. The next morning, Matthew came to pick up Zink. I heard his car pull into the driveway around 9 a.m. I'd already coached myself. Stay calm, stay normal. Don't let him see the fury sitting in your chest like a stone. I opened the door before he could knock. "Morning, Dad," Matthew said. He looked tired. "Good." I hoped he wasn't sleeping well. "Matthew, good to see you, son." I pulled him into a hug. Felt his body stiffen slightly, the way it always does when he's uncomfortable with affection. I held on a second longer than usual. "You okay, Dad?" "Oh, fine. Just, you know." I waved my hand vaguely like I'd lost my train of thought. "Zink's upstairs. Let me grab him." "Actually, Dad, I wanted to talk to you for a minute." Here it comes, I thought. We sat down in the living room. Matthew perched on the edge of the couch, hands clasped together. His serious conversation posture. "How have you been feeling lately?" he asked. "Feeling? I'm fine. Why?" "It's just, Abigail mentioned you seemed a little confused last time she was here. Said you asked her the same question twice." I hadn't, but I didn't argue. Did I? I let my face crease with concern. "Huh, I don't remember that." The lie tasted like acid. Matthew leaned forward. "Dad, it's nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of people your age start having memory issues. It's totally normal. You think something's wrong with me?" "Not wrong, just maybe we should get you checked out. You know, by a doctor. Make sure everything's okay." I let silence hang between us. Let him think I was processing this. Let him think he was helping. "Maybe you're right," I said finally. "I have been forgetting little things. Where I put my keys. Whether I took my blood pressure pill." His eyes lit up. I saw it. That flash of satisfaction. "I'm glad you're open to it, Dad. I actually already made you an appointment with a neurologist. Dr. Karras. She's supposed to be excellent. 2 weeks from Thursday." He'd already made an appointment, without asking me, because he was so certain I'd go along with it. "That's thoughtful of you, son. I just want to make sure you're taken care of." He reached over and squeezed my shoulder. "And, hey, while we're talking about this stuff, have you thought any more about the power of attorney paperwork? We discussed it a few months ago." "Power of attorney?" "Yeah, just in case something happens, you know. So someone can handle your bills, medical decisions, that kind of thing. It's really standard for people your age." "People my age. Like I was already halfway to the grave." "I suppose that makes sense," I said slowly. "But wouldn't that be a lot of responsibility for you?" "I don't mind, Dad. You're my father. I want to help." The words sounded right. Caring. Dutiful. But I'd heard the recordings. I knew what this help really meant. "Let me think about it," I said. "Of course. No rush." But his jaw tightened. Just slightly. He wanted me to agree now. Zink came thundering down the stairs then, backpack bouncing on his shoulders. "Bye, Grandpa." He hugged me around the waist. "Bye, buddy. Come back soon." Matthew stood, put his hand on Zink's shoulder. "Ready, champ?" "Yep." As they headed for the door, Matthew turned back. "Oh, and Dad, I'm going to grab the spare key you gave me. That way, if you ever lock yourself out, I can help." "The spare key? Right, where did I put that?" "Kitchen drawer, remember? You showed me last year." "Oh, yes, of course." He walked into my kitchen like he owned it, opened the drawer, took the key, my key, to my house, to my car. "Got it," he called out. "Thanks, Dad. I'll check on you in a few days." And then they were gone. I stood at the window and watched my son drive away with my grandson waving from the back seat. Then I locked the door, walked to the phone, and called the one person I knew I could trust. Jonathan Hargrave answered on the third ring. "Wilberforce, that you?" "It's me, John." "Well, I'll be damned. Haven't heard from you in what, 6 months? How the hell are you?" Jonathan and I go back 50 years. We served together on the USS Oriskany, him in communications, me in engineering. We survived a fire on board in '72 that killed 10 men. When you go through something like that with someone, you're bonded for life. After the Navy, Jonathan went to law school, built a practice in estate planning and elder law, retired 5 years ago but still took cases for friends. "John, I need your help." My voice must have sounded wrong because his tone shifted immediately. "What happened?" I told him everything. The dashcam footage, the affair, the conversations about power of attorney and dementia diagnoses, the way Matthew was already setting the stage to declare me incompetent. Jonathan was silent for a long moment after I finished. Then, "That son of a bitch." "John." "No, I mean it, Wilberforce, your own son. Jesus Christ." I heard him exhale heavily. "Okay. First thing, don't sign anything. I mean it. Nothing. Not a card, not a receipt, not a damn birthday check until we figure this out." "I wasn't planning to." "Good. Second, you need to understand what he's doing here. This isn't just an affair. He's building a legal case to take control of your assets. If he can get a doctor to say you're cognitively impaired, and he has power of attorney, he can sell your house, drain your accounts, make medical decisions, all without your consent." The words made my stomach turn. Can he really do that? If you give him the authority? Absolutely. And the scary part is, it's all legal. Happens more than you'd think. Adult children convince aging parents to sign over control, then use it to liquidate everything before the parent even realizes what's happening. So what do? You fight back, strategically. You document everything. You protect your assets. And you make damn sure that if this goes sideways, you have evidence that you were of sound mind when you made your decisions. How? Leave that to me. But Wilberforce, I have to ask, do you want to destroy him, or do you want to stop him? I thought about that. Destroying Matthew would be easy. I could go to his employer, his church, his friends, show them the footage, ruin his reputation, maybe his marriage. But then what? Zink loses his father, Abigail loses her husband, and I lose my son forever. Was that justice, or just revenge wearing a moral costume? "I want to stop him," I said finally, "and I want him to understand what he almost did." "Then here's what we're going to do." Jonathan laid out a plan. It was careful, legal, and it would work. First, I'd go to a different doctor, one Jonathan recommended, and get a full cognitive evaluation. Memory tests, psychological assessment, the works. That would create documentation that I was sharp, competent, and in full control of my faculties. Second, I'd revoke any informal permissions I'd given Matthew regarding my finances or medical decisions. I'd create a new power of attorney, one managed by a trust with Jonathan as the executor. It would require third-party verification for any major decisions. Third, I'd keep playing the role. Let Matthew think his plan was working. Let him get comfortable. And when he makes his move, when he tries to actually execute this thing, that's when we spring the trap, Jonathan said. What kind of trap? A family meeting. You, him, Abigail, and me on a video call. We present the new documents. We make it clear that you're protected. And we give him a choice. Walk away clean or face the consequences. What consequences? Well, for one, elder financial abuse is a felony in this state. You have him on camera conspiring to defraud you. That's evidence. We probably wouldn't prosecute, not family, but the threat of it, that's leverage. I was quiet. Wilberforce, you still there? Yeah. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm strategizing against my own son like he's an enemy combatant. He made himself the enemy when he decided your life was an obstacle to his bank account. Harsh, but true. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The next 2 weeks were strange. I went to Dr. Kari's like Matthew scheduled. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. She ran me through the standard tests. Remember these words. Draw a clock. Count backward from 100 by sevens. I aced every single one. Mr. Wilberforce, I'm not sure why your son thought you needed this evaluation, she said at the end. Your cognitive function is excellent for someone half your age. He worries, I said. You know how kids are. She smiled but looked puzzled. Well, you can tell him there's nothing to worry about. I'll send my report to your primary care physician, but I'm marking this as normal across the board. Perfect. I also went to Dr. Carruthers, Jonathan's recommended neurologist, for a second, more detailed evaluation. 2 hours of testing, brain scans, memory assessments. Same result. Completely normal. You've got the brain of a 60-year-old, Dr. Carruthers told me. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I walked out with documentation proving my mental competence. Matthew called twice during those 2 weeks to check in. Both times I played the part, mentioned forgetting where I'd parked at the grocery store, asked him what day of the week it was even though I knew perfectly well it was Wednesday. I hated every second of it. But it worked. Dad, don't worry about it, Matthew said, his voice dripping with false concern. That's totally normal. We'll get through this together. Meanwhile, Jonathan was busy drafting the trust documents, creating the legal firewall that would protect everything Dorothy and I had built. And then, exactly 2 weeks after Zink's breakfast revelation, I made the call. Matthew, I've been thinking about what you said, about getting my affairs in order. I'd like to have a family meeting. You, me, Abigail, this weekend, Saturday at 2 p.m. Oh, yeah, Dad, that's great. Really responsible. Jonathan Hargrave is going to join us too, on video, just to make sure everything's legal. A pause. Jonathan? Why? He's a lawyer, son. Seemed smart to have one present when we're talking about important documents. Right, of course. That makes sense. But I heard it in his voice. The first crack of doubt, the first tiny suspicion that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't going to go the way he'd planned. Saturday was 3 days away, and I was ready. Saturday arrived like a storm you can see coming but can't stop. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., made my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the documents Jonathan had sent over. They were in a folder on the table. Crisp, official, ready. The new power of attorney, the trust agreement, the cognitive evaluation results, and underneath all of that, printed and highlighted, the dashcam transcripts. Evidence. Matthew and Abigail were due at 2 p.m. Jonathan would join via video call at 2:15. I'd set up my laptop in the dining room, the same room where we'd celebrated Matthew's graduation, his wedding, Zink's christening. Now it would be the room where I took my life back. By 1:45, I'd straightened the house twice. Pointless, nervous energy. I'm not usually anxious, but this was different. This wasn't a stranger I was confronting. This was my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the man who was trying to rob me blind. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 p.m. I opened it to find Matthew and Abigail on the porch. Matthew wore a button-down shirt, his serious occasion outfit. Abigail looked pale, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying recently. Hey, Dad. Matthew smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Come in, come in. They sat on the couch. I took the armchair across from them. The laptop was already positioned on the side table, camera angled toward all of us. So, Matthew said, folding his hands, you wanted to talk about getting things organized. That's right. I think it's really smart, Dad. A lot of people wait too long and then things get messy. But if we do this now, while you're still, clear-headed, while I'm still competent? He blinked. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Abigail's eyes darted between us. She sensed something. Dad, I just mean that it's better to plan ahead. That's all. Right, planning ahead. That's why you scheduled me with Dr. Karras without asking me first. His smile faltered. I thought I was helping. Helping? Interesting word. The laptop chimed. Jonathan's face appeared on screen, his expression neutral but sharp. "Good afternoon, everyone. Wilberforce, Matthew, Abigail. Thanks for including me." Matthew turned to the screen. "Hey, Mr. Hargrave. Good to see you." "Likewise, Matthew. Your father asked me to join today because we're discussing some important legal documents. I'm here to make sure everything is done properly." "Of course, that makes sense." Jonathan's eyes flicked to me. A subtle nod. It was time. I reached for the folder on the table. "Matthew, before we talk about power of attorney, I want to show you something." I pulled out the first document, the cognitive evaluation from Dr. Carruthers. "This is from a neurologist I saw last week. Full cognitive assessment, brain scans, memory tests. Would you like to know what it says?" Matthew's jaw tightened. "Dad, you didn't need to. It says I'm completely normal, sharp, no signs of dementia, memory loss, or impairment of any kind." I slid the paper across the coffee table toward him. He didn't pick it up. "That's great, Dad. That's really great news." "Is it?" I leaned forward. "Because you've been telling people I'm forgetful, that I'm slowing down, that I ask the same questions multiple times. Why would you say that if it's not true?" I was just concerned. I didn't mean—" "You told Ella I was losing my mind." The room went silent. Abigail's head snapped toward Matthew. Her face drained of color. Matthew froze. "What?" "Ella Thornton, your co-worker, the woman you've been meeting in my car, late at night, while your wife is at home with your son." Abigail stood up. Her hands were shaking. "Matthew." "Abigail, I can explain. You've been using his car?" I pulled out the next document, the dashcam screenshots, timestamps, images of Matthew and Ella in my Buick. 17 times, I said quietly. 17 times in the last 3 weeks. You took my car, picked her up, and drove to the park. The same park where I used to push you on the swings. Matthew's face turned red. "Dad, this isn't— You don't understand." "Then help me understand, because here's what I heard." I pulled out the transcripts, and I read them aloud. "The house is worth at least $800,000 now. Once he signs the power of attorney, we just need the dementia diagnosis to make it legal." Each sentence landed like a hammer. Abigail sat back down, not because she wanted to, because her legs gave out. Matthew's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "You were planning to have me declared incompetent," I said, "so you could take control of my assets, sell my house, the house your mother and I bought 43 years ago, the house where you grew up." "Dad, no, that's not—" Those conversations were taken out of context. Out of context? My voice rose for the first time. "You told Ella I'd want you to be taken care of, that I just don't realize I'm not capable of making my own decisions anymore. What context makes that okay?" Jonathan's voice cut through from the laptop. "Matthew, I strongly suggest you stop talking." But Matthew was spiraling now. "I was protecting you. You're getting older. You're alone in that big house. What if something happens? So you decided to steal from me? It's not stealing. It's your son taking care of his inheritance." The word hung in the air like poison. Inheritance. Abigail made a sound, half sob, half gasp. "Oh my God, Matthew." I stood up slowly. My legs felt steady. My voice felt cold. "Let me be very clear. I am 72 years old. I am in excellent health. My mind is sharp, and I will be living in my house for as long as I damn well please." I placed the final document on the table. "This is a new power of attorney. It's managed by a trust, with Jonathan as executor. Any major financial or medical decision requires third-party verification. You are not listed as a beneficiary. You are not listed as a decision-maker. You have no access to my assets." Matthew stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. "And this," I said, pulling out a USB drive, "is a copy of all the dash cam footage, every conversation, every late-night drive, Every moment you thought I'd never discover. I set it on the table next to the documents. You have a choice, Matthew. You can walk away from this. End whatever you have with Ella. Go to marriage counseling with your wife. Be a father to your son. And we never speak of this again. Or I send this footage to your employer, your church, your friends, and I file a police report for attempted elder financial abuse, which is a felony in this state. His face went white. Jonathan's voice came through calm and measured. Just so we're clear, Matthew, I've reviewed the evidence. You'd likely face criminal charges and civil liability. This isn't a bluff. Abigail was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Matthew looked at me. Really looked at me. Dad, I'm sorry. I never meant— Yes, you did. Those 3 words broke something in him. His shoulders sagged. His hands dropped to his lap. I need you to leave now, I said. Both of you. I need time. Abigail stood first. She walked to the door without looking at Matthew. He followed slowly, moving like a man in a daze. At the threshold, he turned back. Dad! Goodbye, Matthew. The door closed. I stood in the silence of my dining room, listening to their car start and pull away. Jonathan's face on the laptop screen looked somber. You okay, Wilberforce? I sat down heavily. I just destroyed my son. No, you stopped him from destroying you. There's a difference. Maybe, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. If your heart is pounding right now, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button because the next is where we find out if forgiveness is even possible after betrayal like this. Drop a like if you think I did the right thing. And comment. Could you ever forgive someone who did this to you? 3 months passed. I won't lie and say they were easy. They weren't. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I'd been too harsh. Mornings where I reached for the phone to call Matthew, then remembered why I couldn't. But I also slept better knowing my house was still mine. Jonathan finalized all the legal documents. My assets were protected. My future was secured. And slowly, painfully slowly, I started to rebuild some kind of normal life. Matthew and Abigail went to counseling. I know because Abigail called me 2 weeks after that terrible Saturday. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her at first. I didn't know, she kept saying. I swear, Wilberforce, I didn't know about the plan. I knew about Ella, I suspected for months, but the rest of it— I believe you, I told her, and I did. She'd been a victim, too, just a different kind. Is he still seeing her? I asked. No, he ended it. The day after you showed us everything. I think he's ashamed. He should be. How's Zink? Her voice softened. He misses you. He keeps asking when he can visit Grandpa again. That nearly broke me. Soon, I said. Tell him soon. It was Zink who built the bridge back. 6 weeks after the confrontation, Abigail brought him over. Just the 2 of them. Matthew stayed home. Zink ran up my driveway like nothing had changed. Hugged me around the waist. Smelled like kid shampoo and summer grass. Grandpa, I learned all the dinosaurs that start with T. Want me to tell you? Absolutely. We sat on the porch and he rattled off names. Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Therizinosaurus, while I listened and asked questions and felt something in my chest unclench. Abigail stood at the bottom of the steps, watching us. When Zink ran inside to use the bathroom, she came closer. He's trying, she said quietly. Matthew, he's really trying. The counselor says he's making progress. Good. He wants to talk to you, when you're ready. Not to ask for anything, just to say what he needs to say. I looked at her. She looked exhausted. Older, but still standing. I'm not ready yet. I know, but maybe someday? Maybe. That maybe turned into a phone call last week. Matthew's voice was different, smaller, uncertain. Dad, I know I don't have the right to ask for your time, but could I come over? Just for a few minutes? I almost said no, but I thought about Zink, about the boy who still loved his father despite everything, about the man my son could still become if someone gave him the chance. "Saturday," I said, 2 o'clock. "Thank you." He showed up alone. No Abigail, no excuses. Just Matthew, standing on my porch in jeans and an old sweatshirt, looking like he hadn't slept well in months. I let him in. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd confronted him, the same furniture. But the air felt different. "Dad, I'm not here to make excuses," he started. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just need you to know. I understand what I almost did to you, and I'm ashamed." I stayed quiet. The counselor asked me to trace it back. When did I start thinking of you as an obstacle instead of my father? And I couldn't answer. It just happened slowly. Bills piling up, feeling like I'd never get ahead, seeing your house, your savings, and thinking it was already half mine anyway, like you were just holding it until I needed it. His voice cracked. "But you're not a bank, Dad. You're my father, and I treated you like something to be managed, exploited. I'm so sorry." I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. There were gray hairs I hadn't noticed before at his temples. He looked older, broken. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," I said honestly. "What you did, what you were planning to do, it shattered something. I know. But I haven't given up on you either, because of Zink, and because somewhere inside you is still the boy I raised, the one who cried when we had to put the dog down, the one who helped me build birdhouses for the neighbors." Matthew's eyes filled with tears. "I'm going to work on finding him again," he whispered. "I promise." We sat in silence for a while. Then I said, "Zink wants to stay over next weekend, if that's okay with you." He looked up. "Really?" "He's my grandson. This mess is between you and me. It's not his burden to carry." "Thank you, Dad." He left a few minutes later. No hugs, no false reconciliation. Just two men who'd hurt each other, trying to figure out if the pieces could ever fit back together. I don't know what happens next. Maybe Matthew becomes the man he's supposed to be. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe we rebuild something that looks like trust. Maybe we don't. But here's what I've learned. Betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can clarify you, strip away the illusions, show you who people really are, including yourself. I'm 72 years old. I've been lied to, betrayed, and nearly robbed by my own son. But I'm still here, still in my house, still making breakfast for my grandson, still believing that even broken things can be repaired, if both people are willing to do the work. Some betrayals arrive softly, from the mouths of children who don't understand what they're revealing. But sometimes that's the only way the truth gets out. And the truth, painful as it is what sets you free. If this story moved you, reminded you that resilience is more powerful than revenge, then please hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive betrayal. Like this video if you believe forgiveness is possible, even when it's hard. And leave a comment. What would you do if your family betrayed you like this? Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Your support means everything. Until next time, stay strong.